Ayrton Senna will look to bounce back following his gut-wrenching retirement in San Marino. Let's see if we can challenge for victory again in the 1994 Monaco Grand Prix. Hello everybody and welcome to the fourth round of the 1994 season for the Monaco Grand Prix here on F1 Challenge. This infamous tight and twisty street course in the Principality of Monaco is well known for putting a driver's concentration to its absolute limit, with barriers lying at every time to greet you if you make a mistake. If you missed the last episode at the San Marino Grand Prix, I would highly suggest checking that one out before watching this one, as multiple frontrunners ran into issues during the race, leading to an unexpected eventual race winner. Going into this round, we have a three-way tie for the lead of the Drivers' Championship, with Gerhard Berger, Michael Schumacher and Damon Hill all on 16 points each. Meanwhile, consistent results for Marc Blundell and Larrousse's Olivier Panis sees them complete the top 5. We'll be looking to get back into the top 6 after just missing out on points in Imola, as we currently sit 9th place in the drivers' standings with 3 points. In the Constructors' Championship, Benetton holds a 6-point advantage over Ferrari, but Williams have proved they have what it takes to challenge for the Constructors after bagging their first race win of the season. Sauber are in 6th, with 2 points behind my former team, Larrousse. I've always gone well around this circuit, scoring my first points of my career here last season with a brilliant 5th place finish. We're hoping to match such expectations today. Also, be sure to check out YouTube channel memberships. You get a bunch of bonus perks for the cheapest price YouTube allows me to set, and thanks to these guys who have already joined. Now let's head into the news of the week. Hello and welcome to the Monaco edition of the News of the Week. Let's get straight into it. Safety sets precedent at Imola. The new safety-orientated regulations have been put to the test, following several hefty impacts at the San Marino Grand Prix, and they have withheld their purpose, with all drivers being able to partake in the Monaco Grand Prix. Ayrton Senna's crash was recorded at a whopping 45G. Fortunately, he got out of his car unaided, with only a minor case of cauliflower ear being the resultant. Jean Alesi escaped with only a migraine, as Carl Wendlinger suffered bruising to his right knee. Jarvelato was another one suffering injury, but only a small cut to his finger. All of the drivers were completely unharmed for their respective crashes. It's great to see that these regulations have already had such an impact on the sport already. I'm almost certain that a couple of those crashes that we saw in San Marino would have kept drivers out for an extended period of time, so it's great to see that those regulations have certainly made the difference. Larrousse and Panis shine as early season surprises. Larrousse has emerged as one of the unexpected dark horses of the 1994 season beginning. Their switch from Lamborghini to Peugeot engines was initially questioned, but now it looks like a masterstroke. The team's momentum is driven largely by rookie Olivier Panis, last season's F3000 champion, who is rapidly becoming a standout driver of the year. Panis sits 5th in the Drivers' Championship with 5 points after just 3 races, scoring an impressive 4th place in Aida and a strong 5th in Imola. His calm approach, speed and consistency are turning heads across the paddock, confirming him as one of France's most promising young talents. If this form continues, Panis could soon rise as one of Formula One's next major stars, and Larrousse may find themselves fighting far higher than anyone expected. That's from Raymond Blancafort of Larrousse del Motor. It's quite the breath of fresh air to see quite a different team challenging for the points on a regular basis. Of course, Larrousse, I was driving there last season, and I guarantee a few of you were questioning why I even left in the first place with such form from Larrousse, but hopefully for our sake at Sauber we can catch up to them. I feel like we have got the faster car, it's just a bit more of an unpredictable drive, so hopefully we can catch up to Panis and Larrousse within the coming races. The danger chicane. In the 1994 San Marino Grand Prix, quite an astonishing number of accidents happened at the final chicane, Variante Bassa. 7 incidents in all occurred on Sunday. The most notable of the 7 was when the 2 Ferraris and the Benetton of Michael Schumacher spun on the same lap, with Alesi retiring from the lead and teammate Gerhard Berger making a similar mistake, collecting the French Sicilian. Schumacher also had a similar incident spinning in sympathy, but fortunately was capable of continuing to second place. Jarveleto and Wendlinger were also amongst those who had large shunts, but none were more notable than Ayrton Senna. The Brazilian led the closing stages comfortably until he had a crash of his own, clipping the curb and flipping over once hitting the tyre barriers. The circuit has now been put under question by the FIA, and what possible solutions can be made to prevent such incidents. That's from Casey Kirk of Auto Talk Northern Ireland. I reckon this is going to affect Imola's reputation quite a bit. It's obviously known as a brilliant driver's circuit, and a lot of the teams come here for testing. Hopefully, for Imola's sake, it does not get removed off the calendar. It is one of my favourite tracks, but certainly something needs to be done with the circuit. Torrid Tyrrell, 0 points with the best finish of 8th, 3 drivers and a disqualification in Adelaide would have been a season of disaster in 1993. Disappointingly, 1994 is somehow stooping to even lower depths for Ken Tyrrell's team. Yet to qualify inside the top 20, with the lowlight of their San Marino Grand Prix coming on lap 2 when Frentzen lost his front wing on a spinning Katayama. He then retired on lap 11 and Katayama finishing 4 laps down and struggling behind David Coulthard's Pacific. The problem for Tyrrell? You can't slate the drivers with Katayama and Frentzen on a similar pace. Fingers have to be pointed somewhere, and when drivers continue to struggle, it's a design problem. Concerns about a significant workload in recent weeks won't be met with sympathy. If they don't achieve results soon, it won't be long before this historic team becomes merely a footnote of the 90s. That's from Richard A. Harding of The Rat magazine. Yeah, it's a bit of a shame to see Tyrrell in such a state right now. Obviously, we had an offer from them to drive for them in 1994, and I've got to say thank goodness that we didn't go there. Otherwise, we would have been in a world of trouble. Obviously, Katayama and Frentzen, they're both fairly decent drivers. Obviously, Frentzen, known for his exploits outside of Formula 1 and has been touted as a driver better than Michael Schumacher. Hopefully Tyrrell can turn it around throughout some point in 1994 at least. Onto the upgrades now, where Ferrari fetch another upgrade in the form of a rear wing that will reduce their drag. Sauber also introduce a rear wing but aim to combat stability issues by adding downforce. Footwork bring a new shape to their body to help with drag reduction, and Tyrrell look to improve results with an upgrade package, reducing weight as well as drag with a new shape of body panels. That's all for the news, now let's head into qualifying. Hello everybody and welcome to qualifying day here in Monte Carlo. It's the most important qualifying session of the entire season, as it's so difficult to overtake around here. You must start high up the order to have any chance of a good result. We're seeing Mika Salo setting the benchmark out there on circuit. He goes to pole position with a high 1 minute 22, but David Coulthard with a brilliant lap in the Pacific goes 2/10 faster. David Coulthard has been doing really well in the practice sessions as well, so this certainly isn't a fluke from the young Scotsman. Hopefully he can put that Pacific up the order more than it usually is. It's normally just ahead of the Simtex, but maybe he could challenge maybe the Minardis and the Tyrrells. Martin Brundle also out there on circuit. He goes to pole position by over a second ahead of the pair of them as we now head out onto the circuit for the first time. It's quite a cold session here in Monte Carlo. We're in the middle of May, but the temperatures have not exceeded 15 degrees Celsius all weekend, and there is a slight chance of rain going into Sunday as we now begin our first lap in the qualifying session. In towards turn 1, a bit of a lock up there, and we had to get off the brakes a little bit just to actually not hit the wall. Halfway through the lap though, we've caught up to one of the Lotus cars. I believe that's a Guri Suzuki. And coming into the final sector now, we're going to get severely held up by the Japanese driver. He's not on a lap, he's just come out the pit lane. So obviously I'm quite frustrated about that. We pull alongside just to try and get as good of a lap time as we can, but it's a pretty terrible one at that. 1:22.7, and that is last place of those that have set a lap time so far, so we're definitely going to need to go out there and set a much more competitive lap time. Jean Alesi, the first of the front runners to set a lap time, and he goes to pole position quite comfortably ahead of Martin Brundle's Ligier. Ferrari have fetched an upgrade coming into this race for drag reduction. I don't know how much effect that's going to have around Monte Carlo, but Gerhard Berger also convincingly moves ahead of Blundell and convincingly ahead of Alesi as well, about 0.8 of a second he's beaten his teammate by in that first run, as we're now back on circuit once again. We've pretty much gone out about 5 or 10 minutes after the first run just to try and get a lap on the board early on in the session. Through turn 1, at the end of sector 1, we are 2.5 tenths up through the first sector, but that's a massive lock up there into Mirabeau, I believe that corner's called, as we head through the Lowe's hairpin on this lap into the second sector split, which is very early on in the lap. It's before the Nouvelle chicane, and it's pretty much matching what I did on that first lap, obviously making that big mistake, but we did get held up quite a bit there by Aguri Suzuki in the middle sector, and especially in the last sector. Despite locking up through Raskas, this should be a much better lap. We've clipped the inside wall even through Anthony Nogues, but hopefully this is a much better lap up towards the line. It is a much better lap. An improvement of 2 whole seconds moves us up to third behind the 2 Ferraris. So despite the mistakes, we are currently best of the rest, as we now see Ayrton Senna out on circuit. It sounds like he's got a gearbox problem as he's revving the heart out of that Renault powered car. Yep, it's a Renault powered car. I was about to say, why is it a Williams powered car? It's not a Williams powered car, it's a Renault powered car. Anyway, Johnny Herbert goes to second. Oh, that's a contact there with Christian Fittipaldi as he was on his in lap. Fortunately, both of them are able to carry on, that being Fittipaldi and Senna, as my teammate had a front row seat to seeing that. Anyway, Christian Fittipaldi has gone to 4th place in his footwork, so he's gone directly ahead of me, I believe. Up towards the line for my teammate Carl Wendlinger. After his first 2 runs, he's only 8th fastest and is over a second away from my lap time. Damon Hill rounding the final corner, and he is coming up towards the line. He didn't have a great qualifying session in San Marino despite winning the race, and here is no exception. Only 5th fastest for the Williams drivers, behind the McLaren of Johnny Herbert. Ayrton Senna, though, showing why he's the master of Monaco, goes to pole position by a couple of tenths. Michael Schumacher also out there on circuit. The Benettons, as of recent, have been fairly anonymous in qualifying sessions. No pole positions this season, and that will continue so far in this session at least, as Michael Schumacher goes to 3rd fastest behind Senna and behind Gerhard Berger. Jean Alesi back out on circuit once again, and we'll see what the Ferrari driver is capable of doing as he rounds Anthony Nogues up towards the line for the French Sicilian, and it will be 3rd position for the Ferrari driver, so he moves ahead of Michael Schumacher's Benetton. Johnny Herbert is looking strong in that McLaren, obviously promoted to the team leader following Häkkinen's injury, and yeah, the McLaren is certainly looking strong in the hands of Johnny Herbert as he goes to 5th place. He did improve, but not by much, as Aguri Suzuki was coming out the pits and held him up a little bit, as we saw a bit of weird camera work from me. Ayrton Senna up towards the line for another lap. He's already on pole, but extends his gap at the front. He's now 6 tenths ahead of the rest of the field for pole position. Even despite the car disadvantage, Ayrton Senna just loves this circuit, and 1994 is no exception, as we're now back out on circuit once again. This is my final run in the qualifying session, but we're going out for several laps at a time for this one. Through turn 1 once again, quite hard to pick out your braking zone for that. I found a zebra crossing down towards turn 1 is good for that, as first sector split 2 tenths down, second sector split a tenth up, but over the curbs, unsettling the car and trying to keep the speed up has caused us to spin on the exit of the Nouvelle chicane, and we're going to have to wait for the Jordan and the Larrousse to go through until we can spin it back around. Anyway, starting our final lap in the qualifying session. We're currently on a lap, but we're going to go into consecutive laps and see if we can get any higher than 10th place.
overheating, shift left. You're down at the first sector. Engine is overheating, shift left. You're down at the second sector.
And a very healthy improvement of 4/10 moves us to within striking distance of the front runners. 8th place on the grid. It will be a brilliant place to start as we now see the final couple of front runners doing their laps. First up is Damon Hill up towards the line. It's only 6th fastest for the Williams driver. Mark Blundell up towards the line as well in the Benetton, slightly held up by the Ligier, and it's only 7th place for him. That means that at the front it is Ayrton Senna to take his first pole position for Williams, an absolutely dominant display for the Brazilian here in Monaco. Ayrton Senna
has beaten his own provisional pole time.
Hello everybody and welcome to the starting grid of the 1994 Monaco Grand Prix, where Ayrton Senna has taken his first pole position of the season. Gerhard Berger starts alongside in second, with Michael Schumacher completing the top 3. It's 2 Ferraris in the top 4, with John Lacey a couple hundredths behind the German. Johnny Herbert gets his season's best qualifying in 5th, ahead of his compatriot Damon Hill in the Williams. Mark Blundell is up next in the second Benetton with the season's best qualifying from us in 8th, and that's the first top 10 starts for us in this season. Martin Brundle is up next in 9th, with Christian Fittipaldi completing the top 10 in the footwork. Olivier Panis in the Larrousse is up next, with Carl Wendlinger getting out qualified by us for the first time this season. It's a 13th place start for the lead Jordan of Rubens Barrichello, ahead of Pedro Lami's Lotus, and Mika Salo, that should say Jordan, not footwork, starts from 15th. Felipe Alio completes row 8th, and he's 8 places lower than where he qualified last season here at Monaco. Gianni Morbidelli is up next in the second footwork, with Yuki Yavaleto completing row 9. Then comes Frentzen and Badoa to complete the top 20, with Aguri Suzuki another poor qualifying session from him, and he only starts in 21st place in the second Lotus. It's a brilliant qualifying session from David Coulthard in the Pacific, as he starts in 22nd, ahead of Ukiyo Katayama and home driver Olivier Beretta. Then comes Andrea Montemini in the Minardi, and Bertrand Gachot in the second Pacific. That means for the 4th consecutive time, it's Roland Ratzenberger and David Brabham, the 2 Simtecs, failing to qualify for the grid. It's a 2-stop race today, stopping on lap 21 and lap 51. And as you can see, with the rain falling, it's certainly going to be a damp race. Everyone's starting on intermediates, and this should be exciting.
Hello there. Welcome to Monte Carlo. As we've come to expect here, the weather conditions are completely unpredictable. All we can forecast is a very exciting session.
As we now await the lights for the 1994 Monaco Grand Prix, a brilliant chance at points today. The lights are green, there's racing to be seen. That's one of the Benettons that has to be Mark Blundell stalling on the grid. on our right hand side as we head towards turn 1, a position higher than our grid start. There's contact there between Herbert and one of the Ferraris. That's going to be Jean Alesi, as now we head up the hill behind Damon Hill in the Williams, last race's winner, as the intermediate conditions were really struggling in them, so much so we go wide up Massenet, and through goes Christian Fittipaldi up into 8th place. We're also being challenged by Olivier Panis. Up the inside goes the Frenchman at Mirabeau. Up the inside once again though at Lowe's hairpin. We don't want to lose too many places off this start, or we'll not gain them back for the rest of the Grand Prix, as we're up into 8th place. So that's where we started in this Grand Prix. As we can see, look at the amount of chaos there was at the start line there. I believe it was Olivier Panis hopping a wheelie there across the start-finish line. I'm going to replay on board with Rubens Barrichello. That's just congestion, just absolute manic right there, as he heads into turn 1, 11th in 11th place. That's 2 places gained for him. Carl Wendlinger was another one involved in that incident, and I believe he's broke his suspension from that, so he's out the race, and that's 4 consecutive retirements for my teammate Carl Wendlinger. Hopefully he can catch some form eventually in this season, as we need his help in the constructors against this team right here, Larrousse, as we see a replay of Olivier Panis diving it down the inside of us, forcing his way through, making contact with us. He doesn't care, but we switch it back up the inside of the rookie, and we move back up into 8th position. So a fairly decent start from us. We've not lost any places, but we've not gained any either. We're currently in 8th position. It'd be interesting to see how much fuel people have got, as we've got a yellow flag up in front. It's Michael Schumacher. Schumacher's crashed. There's his front wing on the front, on the floor there, as that's double trouble for Benetton. One out the race already from stalling on the grid, and the other one is requiring a new front wing on the opening lap. There goes Michael Schumacher, losing possibly concentration through the Nouvelle chicane, and that's all it took for him to lose his front wing and possibly any chance of scoring a podium finish in this Grand Prix. There goes Gerhard Berger up the inside, and he moves up into 2nd place to try and catch up to Ayrton Senna, but the Brazilian has shot away at the front. He's about 5 seconds already in the lead, as Michael Schumacher greatly held up all those behind him. As we now complete the first lap, it's Ayrton Senna that leads the way. He starts in 1st, and he leads into lap 2 in 1st by an extended margin ahead of Gerhard Berger. The gap is absolutely obtuse between the Brazilian and the Austrian. Johnny Herbert's made a fantastic start as well. He's up to 3rd place, gaining 2 places ahead of Jean Alesi and Damon Hill. Christian Fittipaldi completes the points in the footwork. Then comes myself in 7th, as we now move up ahead of Michael Schumacher. Then comes Panis, Pedro Lamy and Rubens Barrichello. Interesting to see that the only driver to lose places off that start in the top 15 is Martin Brundle-Ligier. Out of the pits comes Michael Schumacher, and he will rejoin in 22nd position. So he's got a lot of work to do as he rejoins ahead of the home driver of Olivier Beretta. Now got a brilliant run on the end of lap 1. Up the inside of Christian Fittipaldi maybe. He blocks that opportunity. We're almost pushing him through Saint-Devote. That's what the corner's called. No heroics into Saint-Devote. We tried some and it did not pay off, as here's Jean Alesi with some heroics up the inside of Johnny Herbert as they head into Sector 2, and he's going to pay the price there. Damon Hill sneaking up the inside into the hairpin, and so does Christian Fittipaldi in the footwork. He was injured for the San Marino Grand Prix and is certainly making an impact here on his return. He's up ahead of Jean Alesi. He's made a brilliant overtake on the Ferrari and he's now into the top 5. Lap 3, and we are trying to pile the pressure on Jean Alesi, but unfortunately we are quite slow through this first sector compared to the AI, and it means that we kind of struggle to get any form of move done in the middle sector, so much so that Olivier Panis up the inside of us once again at Mirabeau. He makes contact with us once again. We fend him off up the inside at the Lowe's hairpin. We keep that place for now, as the rain has now stopped here at Monaco, so we'll be only expecting a drying track from here on in, but it's still quite wet out here. I imagine it'll only be a few laps though until we are on the dry tyres. heading in towards the Novelle chicane. It's one of the most difficult braking points on the entire circuit. Downhill, bumpy, off camber, everything you don't want in a braking zone, and that's that braking zone right there. As we heard that Philippe Alliot has had a problem with his suspension. Fairly similar circumstance to him last race in San Marino, having an early suspension failure and retirement from the Grand Prix. He just parked it on the apex there of the Novelle chicane. That's caused quite a bit of carnage and kerfuffling up behind him, and Mika Salo has lost his front wing in all that carnage. Jyrki Arveleto, who got caught up in that incident, has also spun following that incident. Jyrki Arveleto has had a really tough time of it at Ligier lately, and there are rumours coming out of the Ligier camp that they are wanting to replace him with a French driver, which will be interesting to see if that comes to fruition. Obviously, he was touted as quite the prospect going into 1994, scoring almost all of Sauber's points in 1993. Anyway, back to our race, where on the end of lap 5 we are slowly being dropped by the cars in front, but not too much so that we are holding up the cars behind, if that makes any sense. As we now exit the final corner, we can just see how much time we gain through Sector 3. Sector 3, I'd say, is our strongest sector. Through the swimming pool chicane especially, we gain a lot of time, and especially into Rascasse as well. Basically the whole third sector, we gain all of our time. As on lap 7 we can see up in front it's blue skies and sunny, which means that it's only going to dry out that much faster. Damon Hill up the inside of Johnny Herbert in their battle for the final podium place, up the inside at the Lowe's hairpin. Can Damon Hill get past his compatriot Johnny Herbert? He does, and Damon Hill is up into third place. So that's a Williams 1-3 at the moment, which could, at this current rate, put them in the lead of the Constructors' Championship. Gerhard Berger pits at the end of lap 7 for dry tyres. It's a replay blog with all the tyres looking dry on the replays, but I can assure you before this point they were all on intermediates. Out the pits comes Ayrton Senna. He still remains in the lead. Such was his lead at the front of this race. Into the pits comes Christian Fittipaldi as well. We're going to wait a little bit before pitting, as if you know anything about F1 Challenge, then the dry tyres on the wet track is so much more difficult for the player than it is for the AI. Johnny Herbert was also one to box on the end of lap 7. We can see on his POV how many drivers are into the pits. It's going to become quite chaotic. A footwork, a Larrousse, a Lotus, a Jordan, and I assure you that many more will be into the pits as well. Out of the pits comes Johnny Herbert, and of course because me and John Lacey stayed out, because John Lacey of course couldn't double stack behind his teammate, Johnny Herbert re-emerges in 6th. Heinz-Harald Frentzen, he's had a decent start to it. That's Christian Fittipaldi. He's crashed into the back of Christian Fittipaldi, exiting the pit lane, and it looks like he's possibly broken his car from that. He's just been pushed into a random garage by Rubens Barrichello's Jordan there, and I think Heinz-Harald Frentzen is out of this race. Aguri Suzuki looking up the inside of one of the Pacifics. I think that's Bertrand Gachot. Spins round at the Novelle chicane, and a tough start to the season. Just like Jyrki Arveleto, Aguri Suzuki is becoming quite pressured to get some good results. Fortunately for him, his seat is a bit more secure thanks to that Mugen Honda backing that he has at the team. He falls down to 21st place following that incident with the Pacific. As we now see on the end of lap 8, we've got made contact there with Gerhard Berger. He's on the dry tyres, and he tries and forces his way through at Rascasse. We're not having any of that, and we have to stand our ground. So the Austrian tries and forces his way through, but to no avail. We're up to 2nd place now, possibly the highest that we've ever been in our Formula 1 career in a Grand Prix. But by the end of lap 9 we were overtaken by Gerhard Berger, and into the pits we come for our first stop of this race onto the dry tyres, overshooting our box ever so slightly, but it's still a decent stop. 7.2 seconds as we now exit the pit lane. It's going to be close between us and Christian Fittipaldi in the footwork. He gets out just ahead of us, and we are in 6th place, so we've definitely jumped someone. Ayrton Senna leads the way after the first pit stops. He's about 10 seconds ahead of Gerhard Berger in 2nd. Damon Hill is up 3 places from his grid start. He's in 3rd ahead of Johnny Herbert, Christian Fittipaldi and ourselves. Pedro Lamy has also gained a lot of places. He's up 7 places from his 14th place starting position. Then comes Olivier Panis, Martin Brundle, and Jean Alesi has lost the most out of that. He's lost 6 places thanks to his problems. It's Michael Schumacher is still not in the top 15 yet. Someone who is David Coulthard. He's up 8 places, as well as Luca Badoa and Ukyo Katayama are also up 8 places. Now on the back of Christian Fittipaldi, we're realising how difficult it is when you get offline. We merely touched the wet patch there with the front right, and it just sent us wide into the wall there at Massenet. Fortunately for us, no damage. Of course, we have to use reduced damage for Monaco, otherwise the AI will all just crash. Anyway, here's Michael Schumacher down in the depths of 17th, make that 16th as he gets past Bertrand Gachot in a nice neat little move there at Massenet. He's now got Ukyo Katayama in his sights, as we now are still following Christian Fittipaldi. And that's a bit wide there through the swimming pool chicane, and that's made us spin round. And quick thinking from us, we're just going to try and reverse up the track until we find an escape road, because there's not really any place to turn around, and Pedro Lamy is going to be like, what on earth is that Sauber doing? Anyway, he's up into 6th place, Panis moves up to 7th, we drop down to 8th because of that. I'm not sure if the stewards are going to look at us too kindly for that, but I feel like that was the safest method for us to rejoin the circuit, essentially, as here on board with Ukyo Katayama, he's got Michael Schumacher in the rearview mirrors no longer, as Michael Schumacher heads up into 15th place. He's making quick work of these back markers, but how long will it take for him to get past the likes of possibly me? He might catch me by the end of this race, especially if I keep making mistakes like I just did a couple of laps ago. Anyway, right on the back of Olivier Panis, he's very much being held up there by Pedro Lamy's Lotus. As we try and look round the outside of Rascasse, Olivier Panis forces the door shut, and there's a bit of contact there made with the Larrousse driver round the outside at the Monaco hairpin. We're just trying any way to get through on Olivier Panis, but he's certainly holding his ground here for that 7th position. This isn't even for a points place, and once again at Rascasse he's certainly holding on, but it's starting to get a bit touch and go with how much contact we're getting. It's certainly causing damage. Each time we get contact is again, Olivier Panis getting a little bit desperate in that one, hitting the wall on the outside as well as the inside to keep that place. And as we see now, Gerhard Berger has now been caught by Damon Hill in the fight for 2nd. So Williams certainly looking strong right now. They certainly looked their way into the win at San Marino, but the pace here at Monaco seems legitimate to me, at least, as Damon Hill and Ayrton Senna are currently the 2 fastest drivers out on circuit right now. We've once again got a run on Olivier Panis. Let's see if we can make any way through here on lap 18. This race is flying by, but not quite on in the cockpit. It's quite frustrating as we can't really make any moves. It's a bit stagnant. Obviously, if you go off the line, oh, here we go, round the outside of Olivier Panis as he tries to go up the inside of Pedro Lamy, side by side with Olivier Panis, still side by side, and we've gone onto the wet stuff, and there's basically no grip off the line, and that's us round again, and that's us falling down another couple of places, losing a handful of seconds there. And as I was saying, how much grip there is on offline, off the racing line is basically non-existent. The AI can just drive on that though. However, for the player, I didn't even want to really send it on him, but the lack of braking capability I had off the line just meant that I had no chance and just spun round. Anyway, now re-emergent in 11th place. You can see I'm being very careful with the throttle there, but nearly spinning on the rejoin there, as we now re-emerge about 5 seconds behind John Alesi and about 7 ahead of Luca Badoa's Minardi. Ayrton Senna now dealing with lap traffic on lap 19. He needs to be careful with lap traffic, of course, having his incident following an incident with Aguri Suzuki is there. He nearly spins round at the same corner that we did at Portier, trying to lap, that's Bertrand Gachot, yep. in the Pacific. Fortunately, Senna gets through. Maybe the nerves are jangling a little bit with thoughts of San Marino back in the back of his mind.
Has lost his front wing.
As Rubens Barrichello's lost his front wing, we're now caught up to the back of him, almost spinning. Nice little drift there into Raskas, and that's us now up into the top 10. Let's see what happened then with Rubens Barrichello. Following the Ligier of Martin Brundle, a bit too much curb. Obviously that curb will be full of water now, and no grip to avoid the wall into the, coming out of the Nouvelle chicane at least.
And Lacey has lost his front wing.
And John Lacey's also lost his front wing 2 laps later, trying to get up the inside of Martin Brundle, and basically he's realised that off the line there's no grip, and it's just caused him to lose his front wing as well. So Jean Lacey also requiring a new front wing. Into the pits he goes, and we now move up into 9th place. So that's 2 places gained for us. The tyres are starting to wear out a little bit in this race, but I don't think we're going to be able to go to... Oh, that's Rubens Barrichello out of the race. There's certainly smoke coming out of that Hart power plant in the back of that Jordan. He's trying to hold off Jean Lacey after they've both had new front wings fitted, and Rubens Barrichello's race comes to an end on lap 23 at the Lowe's hairpin. He is out of the Grand Prix. So as I was saying, as we look at the times, there's Luca Badoer losing a lot of time, and I think there's been an incident directly behind me. Gianni Morbidelli's got through on the Minardi driver. Let's see what happened. Michael Schumacher's also involved. Let's see what happened. Up the inside at... and that's Luca Badoer rolling over. Somehow, is he carrying on? Well, Gianni Morbidelli's got past the pair of them. Luca Badoer is carrying on and is fending off Michael Schumacher. That's a very brave move. So Michael Schumacher flipping Luca Badoer at... what's the corner called? I've completely blanked. I can't remember the corner. Anyway, Michael Schumacher's got a 10-second penalty for that. As on the end of lap 26, the amount of spins that we've had has really caused my tyres to go off. You can see how much I'm struggling on these tyres, so we've opted to box early in this Grand Prix and hopefully try and get these tyres to the end in as most of a safe condition as possible. You can see how much spray and water there is still in the pit lane that we just cannot stop for the pit crew. Seems like I broke my pit mechanic's ankles there as we now come out of the pit lane. 51 laps of fuel in the car, exiting the pit lane directly in front of Luca Badoer. Oh, and that's a crash. That's Luca Badoer over the barriers. I think that's Luca Badoer over the barriers. I think we're also out of the Grand Prix. The suspension is absolutely shot from that. Let's see what happened on board with Luca Badoer. It seems like some sort of mechanical problem. That's a huge shunt there for Luca Badoer. He's gone into the buildings in the background. Hopefully he's okay from that crash, as there on board we can see how lucky we were just to only get hit by that much. And there Ayrton Senna got a front row seat to all of that incident, and well, we are now out of the race, as is Luca Badoer. Damon Hill looking to lap Bertrand Gachot. Gachot's being a highlight of the lap cars, and Damon Hill has spun on the inside of the Pacific. Up the order goes Johnny Herbert. He's up into 3rd place, and he's now ahead of Damon Hill's Williams. Damon Hill now trying to get back at Johnny Herbert the following lap. There's contact between the pair of them, and over goes Johnny Herbert. That was a very slow roll there for the McLaren driver. I believe Ligier also spun. That's Yuki Arvoleto, and it caused Christian Fittipaldi to roll over. What on earth is that crash? Anyway, I don't know if all 3 of them are out from that incident, but either way, Olivier Panis is going to be the main beneficiary of that. Moves up into 5th place, and Pedro Lamy also moves up into the points in the Lotus. As there goes Gerhard Berger out of the race from 2nd position, a suspension failure putting him out of commission on lap 31, and any chance of extending his championship lead has been shot to pieces there essentially. Michael Schumacher up in 7th place, and another championship contender has crashed at the swimming pool chicane. I believe Gianni Morbidelli also made a mistake, but he's not got any damage. Michael Schumacher sure does. He's going to have to pit again for a front wing in this Grand Prix, as on lap 34, Ayrton Senna leads the way. He's got a dominant margin ahead of his teammate Damon Hill. Over half a lap, he is now ahead of his teammate. Olivier Panis is now up into 3rd position following pit stops ahead of him. Pedro Lami's up to 4th, with Martin Brundle in 5th and Gianni Morbidelli completing the points. Jean Alesi and Michael Schumacher just outside the points, despite all their incidents throughout this Grand Prix so far. David Coulthard, though, up in 9th place in the Pacific. Could there be a chance that the Scotsman could score points for this Minnow team? Only time will tell. We've still got a long way to go in this race. 44 more laps of this Grand Prix, as there we see Olivier Beretta, the home driver, completing the top 10. Jean Alesi on lap 36, catching up to Gianni Morbidelli, and he's spun round at Anthony Nogues. And that's another mistake for Alesi in this Grand Prix. Down the inside goes Martin Brundle, trying to challenge Pedro Lamy for that 4th position. Can he find any way through? Up the inside at the hairpin. Can he make the move stick? Looking to the outside now of... I still forgot the corner. I knew it early in the race. I've literally been saying it anyway. Through Portier, and Martin Brundle can't quite get through, but it's only a matter of time of when rather than if. The Brit will get past the Portuguese driver. Olivier Beretta into the pits. The home driver will be looking for a decent result at his home track. Exiting the pit lane, he's in the top 10, so he's got a possible chance of a points finish if more drivers in front of him retire. But that sounds like a problem for the Larrousse driver. He pulls off to the side of the road and he is out of the race. Olivier Panis about to get lapped there by Ayrton Senna, the race leader. He opts to pit on lap 40, so this is probably looking like a 3-stop strategy from the French driver, and as such it's going to be Pedro Lamy, who hasn't even scored a point in his Formula 1 career, is going to be up into 3rd place. So there is a very decent chance that Pedro Lamy could be on for a good points finish, if not possibly an outside shot at the podium. As we now see on board with Martin Brundle, he's going to look once again up the inside at this corner. Can't quite find a way through. Can he look up the inside of the hairpin? He's gone for it. He's gone for it. Lamy's left in the space side by side as they head through this section into Portier. Round the outside goes Martin Brundle. It's a daring move, but he's made up the position, has he? Side by side? No, he's pulling ahead now as they go through the tunnel, and that's a brilliant move there from Martin Brundle, and he is now up into the podium places. It's now an all Renault powered top 3. Is here on board with Mika Salo. That looks like a brake failure at the hairpin, and the Finn's race is over and done with. That's his last race before Eddie Irvine returns from his race ban. Up the inside, possibly for Michael Schumacher on Pedro Lamy. Lamy's coming under real pressure here. He's soaking it up, but up the inside goes Olivier Panis on the Benetton. And can he stick the move round the outside? Michael Schumacher still holding the inside, and Olivier Panis has got the place on Michael Schumacher. A very daring overtake there for Olivier Panis, but the next lap Michael Schumacher brings him back down to reality, and Michael Schumacher gets back up into 5th place. But that was a very daring overtake from Olivier Panis, proving he has what it takes to fight with the very best. But on lap 49, the same lap that he got overtaken by Schumacher, he's also overtaken by Jean Alesi at Rascasse. Lap 50, and Ukyo Katayama looks like he's had a spin there. Jean Alesi's been caught up in that incident, and Olivier Panis again overtook Schumacher a couple of laps ago, and now he's overtaken Jean Alesi. So Olivier Panis really getting his elbows out in this Grand Prix. Michael Schumacher all over the back of Pedro Lamy now on lap 51, forces his way up the inside at Massenet and the Casino Square. He gets that place up into the podium places now. No, he's not up into the podium places, he's up into 4th place. Yeah, because he's got quite a way to go to catch up to Martin Brundle. The gap's about 15 seconds between the pair of them, as now we can see that Ayrton Senna has not just overtaken his teammate for position, he has lapped his teammate. So now Ayrton Senna is a whole lap in front of the rest of the field. This has been a really dominant performance for Ayrton Senna and a true comeback following that San Marino crash. Michael Schumacher on lap 56 laps David Coulthard. He was catching up to Martin Brundle, but that's a gearbox failure for Michael Schumacher, and any chance of scoring championship points to get the lead of the driver's standings have been dashed with gearbox problems for the second time this season. Now Pedro Lamy defending Jean Alesi, and that's another mistake from Jean Alesi. Down in 5th place, and I imagine he's going to fall down even further. He's going to need to come into the pits for a new front wing once again in this Grand Prix. It's been a terrible race for Schumacher and Alesi in terms of the incidents, as there goes Gianni Morbidelli flipping over one of the Lotus cars. I don't think that was Pedro Lamy. No, fortunately for Pedro Lamy, it was his teammate Aguri Suzuki who was fairly far down the order, and Suzuki is out of the race. So yeah, it's looking quite strange, the order now. Ayrton Senna leads by a whole lap ahead of his teammate Damon Hill. It's an all-Renault podium with just under 15 laps to go, with Martin Brundle in 3rd. Pedro Lamy up in 4th, and he's got a great chance of scoring his first ever championship points ahead of Olivier Panis, the ever consistent rookie in this season, and Jean Alesi completes the points following Gianni Morbidelli's pit. I believe he pit. Yeah, he must have pit, because he wouldn't have lost that much time from that incident with Aguri Suzuki. David Coulthard, though, is up in 8th place. He's gained 14 places, as well as Ukio Katayama, Andrea Montemini and Bertrand Gachot. They've all gained 14 places from their grid spots. Gachot obviously starting 26th and last. He's in 12th place and last of the running order. Jean Alesi now with a great run on Olivier Panis on lap 69. There's contact between the pair of them, and that's another spin for Jean Alesi. Get your spin counters out, because Jean Alesi's had an incredible amount of spins during this race. Meanwhile, Ayrton Senna dominating from the front, no more, and there's fire. There's fire coming out the back of the Williams, and Ayrton Senna retires from the lead of the Monaco Grand Prix. That's a second race running that he's retired from the lead, and in a lap, Damon Hill will take the lead of the Monaco Grand Prix. Jean Alesi now, 3 laps later, after his spin, he's now once again back on the back of Olivier Panis up the inside, and this time he makes the move stick up into 4th place. That's a good move. He's only got a couple seconds to catch up to Pedro Lamy, who moves up into 3rd place following Ayrton Senna's retirement from the Grand Prix. Lap 75, and you can see that the gap has closed severely to the Portuguese driver, and it's going to be a fight between Jean Alesi and Pedro Lamy for the final podium place. Absolute scenes here at Monaco. Will Pedro Lamy be able to hold on? Lap 77, and Jean Alesi is all over the back of the Lotus driver. He's looking towards the inside. Can he make the outside line work at the hairpin, or will Pedro Lamy force him to go wide? He does force him to go wide. He keeps the place for now, and now he's only got a lap and a half to go until he takes a very popular podium. At the front, though, it's Damon Hill, the son of legendary Graham Hill. Mr. Monaco won 5 times around this circuit, and the legend will continue once again in the form of his son. Damon Hill is just 1 corner away until he takes his first ever Monaco Grand Prix victory up towards the line, and Damon Hill wins the 1994 Monaco Grand Prix. Pedro Lamy under immense pressure there from Jean Alesi. Can he hold on? Can Jean Alesi look towards the inside of Raskas? I don't think he's able to do so, and I think Pedro Lamy may be able to hold on. It's not only his first points of his Formula 1 career, but his first podium. A brilliant result for the Portuguese driver. So then it's Damon Hill who picks up the pieces from his teammate's retirement. He wins 44.5 seconds ahead of Martin Brundle. That's the Brit's first points and the first podium of the season in the Ligier. Pedro Lamy also scores his first points of his Formula 1 career, and it's a podium finish. That's the first time that a Portuguese driver has ever finished on the podium, holding off Jean Alesi in the final laps. Olivier Panis with another good result in that Larrousse completes the top 5 for Gianni Morbidelli, picking up a 10-second penalty for that incident, with Aguri Suzuki still finishes in 6th. David Coulthard very close to the points, just one position away, but unfortunately he just misses out. Then comes Yukiya Katayama, Yuki Arboleto, Andrea Montemini and Bertrand Gachot was 11th and last of the running order. 11 finished the race and 15 retired. The most gut-wrenching of all was Ayrton Senna. He had a golden opportunity to win this race, leading by over a lap, but it still was not enough to take victory here today. Aguri Suzuki got flipped over by Gianni Morbidelli. Michael Schumacher also had a great chance of scoring a podium finish, but that went begging. Gerhard Berger also in a good shot of a second place finish, as well as Johnny Herbert, who had a very strong race until his crash with Damon Hill. Quite a scary crash for Luca Badoa and myself. The suspension being completely ruined on my car means that we retire for the first time this season, as well as Rubens Barrichello, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, Philippe Alliot with consecutive early race suspension failures, as well as Mark Blundell and Karl Wendlinger retiring on the opening lap. Michael Schumacher gets the fastest lap of the race with a 1 minute 20.667. What does this mean then for the Drivers' Championship? It means that Damon Hill now has a 10-point lead at the top of the Drivers' standings. Gerhard Berger and Michael Schumacher both on 16 points apiece, with Jean Alesi moving ahead of Olivier Panis on countback. Pedro Lamy and Martin Brundle both getting their first podium finishes of the season move them both into the top 10 as we move down to 11th in the Drivers' Championship. 13 drivers have scored points and now 9 teams have scored points in the Constructors. Williams takes the lead in the Constructors' Championship by a singular point ahead of Benetton. Ferrari close behind in third, following a couple points courtesy of Jean Alesi. Then comes McLaren and Larrousse both on 7 points apiece. Ligier, Lotus, Sauber in 8th, and Footwork gets their first points of the season in 9th. Thank you ever so much for watching the 1994 Monaco Grand Prix. If you like the content, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to support the channel further, make sure to check out YouTube channel memberships. That's going to be all from me in today's video, and goodbye.